So my current group, Hi Coyotes. This is Levi Harbeson, the fashion design educator at Southwest Career and Technical Academy, and my story is about how I started playing Dungeons and Dragons. Dungeons and Dragons, for those of you who don't know, is a role-playing game, and a role-playing game is kind of like a board game, but instead of there being a winner or a loser, it's an interactive story that just continues. There's no end to it. So every week you get together, just as if you were playing board games at a board game night, but instead the players are pretending to be elves or dwarfs or wizards or warlocks. And a person called the Dungeon Master or the DM leads them through a story where they are heroes battling monsters and exploring dungeons and saving the world. So it's a really, really fun way to get to be who you are on the inside, because it doesn't matter who you are in the real world. In Dungeons and Dragons, you get to be whoever you want to be. If you are weak in real life, you can be super strong in Dungeons and Dragons. If you're not super smart in real life, you can be a really brilliant wizard in Dungeons and Dragons. If you are shy and awkward in real life, you get to be super charismatic and charming and a people person and the leader of the group in Dungeons and Dragons, if that's what you want. Dungeons and Dragons is about being who you are on the inside and just exploring the world and exploring the different facets of your personality through an interactive story experience. It's a lot like theater. It's like acting, and you get to be someone who you aren't normally every day, which is what's super fun about it. And who doesn't want to be the hero of their own story and save the world and battle dragons? Everyone wants to do that. So I got into Dungeons and Dragons because when I was 13, I went on a camping trip with the Boy Scouts, and I didn't have any friends, so I just got put into a random tent with some of the older boys. And one of them was reading this book, and he's like, oh, this book is probably too hard for you to read. It's got a lot of big words in it. And I was like, whatever, I can read. So I grabbed the book from him and started reading it, and it was actually The Lord of the Rings. And I was like, oh my God, this is amazing. I had never read anything like this up until this point. And I was like, these elves are really cool, and there's monsters, and the hobbits are really heroic, and they're trying to get the ring to Mordor to destroy it and save the world. And the guy that I grabbed the book from was so impressed. He's like, wow, you can really read. And I was like, yeah, I can read. And it wasn't as hard as he thought, which was absolutely hilarious. So when I got home, I got my parents to buy me The Lord of the Rings, and I started reading them religiously. And I read through the whole series, and then I was like, I need to read more fantasy books. So the next series I found was The Legend of Dritz, or the Dark Elf Trilogy by R.A. Salvatore. And The Legend of Dritz is actually officially part of the Dungeons and Dragons universe. So in the back of the books, when you're done reading them, there were these ads for the Dungeons and Dragons starter set. And I was like, oh, what's this? And so I had my mom drive me an hour away to the mall, and we went to the bookstore in there, Walden Books, which doesn't exist anymore. And I bought the Dungeons and Dragons starter set, and it was really cool. And I opened it up, and there were minis and dice and, you know, the board that you play on. But at the time, I didn't really have anyone to play with besides my brother, so it just kind of went back on the shelf. And then 2 years later, when I was 15, I had a study hall in school, but it was like a weird study hall because it was a study hall for kids that had tested out of stuff. So we didn't really need the time to do our homework because we were all pretty advanced students. So we were like, oh, what are we going to do during this? And I was like, oh, well, I have this game called Dungeons and Dragons at home. Do you want to try it? Everyone's like, yeah. So I grabbed the starter set, brought it in, and we started playing during the study hall. And it was really fun. So then we started playing outside of school every Wednesday. And soon I had this group of friends that was always playing Dungeons and Dragons with me. And we got really into it. And we started buying more books and more rule sets and more minis and more dice and playing every chance we got. And from there, it just kind of grew into this like hobby and this obsession. And I've been playing ever since. So I played when I moved to Utah. I played when I was in college. I played when I got here. And it's actually how I got my first job in Las Vegas is I ended up working at a board game store running their Dungeons and Dragons events and Pathfinder events. And the cool thing about Dungeons and Dragons is now my group here is the exact opposite of what people think of when they play Dungeons and Dragons. It is literally all world-class athletes and models, and everyone in the group except me has a six-pack, which is absolutely hilarious. And it just kind of goes to show that playing pretend and exploring who you are and getting just to play and tell an interactive story is for everyone. It's not just for nerds that live in their mom's basement. It's literally for everyone. So my current group has an acrobat from Michael Jackson 1, a model that has worked for Rihanna. And it's just really exciting that every week we can come together and pretend to be someone we aren't and tell a story and kind of escape all the troubles of the world while saving a fictional one.